The following program is a production of the Recording Library of West Texas and is also available at recordinglibrary.org.
You've got it tuned in to the Recording Library of West Texas. This is GI Know.
Warriors, come out to play!
The show, hosted by me, David Collins, and produced by Chris Brown, where we discuss veterans and life after the military.
We love you long time.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants.
And now it's time for GI Know.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Welcome to GI Know, the show where we talk about life after the military. And we have a special guest today. Her name is Callie, here to talk to us about Heroes in Heels. And it's an event going on the 20th where we recognize and celebrate our female veterans. Now, I've already said this to our Facebook Live people. Callie is a Army veteran. So David and Callie here have already been going with the old back and forth. Like, dude, you're argumentative today. Like,
If I'm coming across aggressive, I don't mean to. Just, you came in to my house and started talking some smack, so I had to, set the standard, mark the territory.
But it's just jealousy. Like I said, not all of us can be Army.
Yeah, but Army stands for ain't ready to be a Marine yet.
Oh,
snap!
Well, you heard what Marine stands for, right?
What?
My ass rides in Navy equipment.
You know what's funny? I was actually, get this. I'm working with a couple of guys who are veterans as well at my new job. And one of the guys was like, he was Navy. And he's like, yeah, we're your taxi service. I was like, I flew with the Air Force to Afghanistan. I didn't ride with the Navy anywhere.
My grandfather is Air Force. He's retired in the Air Force as a master sergeant. And he's like, well, the Marines and the Navy are pretty much the same thing. The only reason the Navy dress is different is so the Marines know who the girls are when they want to dance. And I was like, damn. Now,
I won't argue with that.
Now, that is not my opinion. I'm just saying there's always a rivalry between the different branches, but they do love each other when it comes down to it.
No, I mean, if I can say this, about 80% of my family is Army. My dad and my grandfather were Air Force. I had one uncle who was Navy, and I'm the first Marine. So I got love for Army.
Well, it's funny because my dad was 82nd Airborne.
Oh, nice.
And when I got out, I was with the 101st Airborne.
Oh,
so now it's even a rivalry between family members because, 82nd will always be second to the 101st.
I just want to make sure that her voice comes through very well. So now that we've got all the pleasantries out of the way, if you want to call them that, let's talk about Heroes in Heels. What is this all about?
This is really just all about bringing our people together. Women specifically are a smaller group within the armed forces. We're just really trying to highlight them. I know most people have heard that this is a female-specific event, and it is. We're highlighting the women and we're celebrating them. However, all of our resources, all of our workshops, all of the stuff that'll be available is available both to men and women.
Right.
Now, I do have one question I would like to ask. Mm-hmm. Can I show up in heels?
You could definitely show up in heels.
I'm so showing up.
They're going to start calling you Klinger.
From a Marine, I wouldn't expect any less.
Well, you've seen my American flag shorts, right?
Oh, dear Lord, please don't show up in those.
No, I'm not going to show up in the American flag ones. I'm going to have my Marine Corps silkies.
Oh, Lord.
There isn't enough shorts.
There's not.
Oh, dear Lord.
I love it.
We used to, when we'd have parties. 4th of July, wasn't it? 4th of July was the last time you wore those shorts, showed up. And let's just say that a man should never wear these shorts.
No, real men wear those shorts. Let's get that straight right now.
It was more of you than I cared to see.
Oh, I love those shorts.
I know you do.
So going, you were saying that females in the military aren't highlighted. Usually, when people think veterans, they think men mostly. Mm-hmm. One thing that I would like to highlight is you had when I was in Afghanistan, we had the CAT teams, which were they were the female Marines that would go out with infantry on patrols, and they would deal with the local female population due to religious beliefs and all that. Men couldn't touch women that weren't their wives and stuff like that. And so, I have nothing but the utmost respect and kudos to our female veterans because they work just as hard.
And they don't get enough credit. I think that a lot of people don't realize that women do get there in the front lines. They do have to be a part of all of that. So
Oh, yeah.
I think that a lot of times we overlook that fact. So I'm glad that we could bring that to everybody's attention. Now, where is this event happening?
It's going to be happening at the Horseshoe Arena Saturday, May 20th from noon to 6 p.m. But I also wanted to step on that a little bit more because it's also that way for female law enforcement.
You're right.
I was a police officer myself, and, there are things that women...
Were you a police officer here in Midland?
In Nectar County.
Oh, wow.
In Odessa.
I think I've been pulled over by you. I personally, I'm terrified of female police officers. When I see that in my rear view, I'm just like, well, I'm getting a ticket.
Is that because you can't talk your way out of it?
No, you cannot. Actually, the men tend to be a lot more lenient than the women. I've been pulled over by a woman police officer about 3 times, and I can guarantee you they're batting 1,000. 3 out of 3 tickets.
Yeah. Well, it's useful to have women on the force too, because when we have female suspects that we're working with, women can do a lot more than men can in that aspect. So it's also very good to have those female officers out there.
There's a whole lot of aspects to it that I'm sure that I've never really thought of. Mm-hmm. You can't really get away with a whole lot as a male trying to search a woman. Mm-hmm. So, at least not without catching a charge of some sort. Whether you're doing your job or not, professionally, they can always come up with something. So we definitely need our females out there, and I'm glad that we have an event that's highlighting what they do. Now, is this event also open to female police officers?
Oh, absolutely, and male police officers. We're going to be hosting the Mike Naylor Memorial PTSD Clinic for our first responders. Oh, wow. They're going to get a chance to come in and talk to some of our veterans who have dealt with these issues, PTSD specifically, see how it correlates not just for military but also law enforcement. We deal with the same issue, with the same symptoms, sometimes with the same instances that caused the trauma to begin with. So I think that we have a lot to learn from one another, and this is just a chance for all of us to come together. Sergeant Mike Naylor was a Air Force veteran, and he was also a deputy here in Midland County. And on top of all of that, he was a mental health deputy.
Really?
So this is something that was near and dear to Mike as a police officer and as a veteran. So we're just continuing on in his legacy, making sure that our own people are taken care of, as well as spreading some of this awareness through the community.
Well, I noticed you are getting a little bit choked up talking about it. Mm-hmm. It's something obviously very close to your heart. Oh, did you know Mike?
I did know Mike. Mike actually did the mental health presentations for the Midland College emergency medical technician classes, and that's where I first met Mike. But I was also a police officer in Andrews. Andrews is a very small West Texas town. They have limited resources, and Mike was always an asset to me in Andrews when we were dealing with somebody with mental illness. I could always call him. He'd be right there. He'd walk me through the process, point me in the right direction, or come and help me with things. He was really just one of those guys that would put everything down, like most of our veterans. He'd put everything on hold just to help you out.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm very glad that y'all can do an event in honor of him. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of what we all want, is to do something worth carrying on a legacy about. And I think that you guys have helped him accomplish that. So thank you very much for what you do. Mm-hmm. And David, so let's talk a little bit about you now that we've got the Heroes in Heels event cleared out.
Well, I want to know what before we move on from the Heroes.
Oh, yeah, no, by all means.
I was just wanting to know, I guess, what was the catalyst for this to start? I mean...
We really wanted to bring in those females once again. Like I said, we're a small group within the Army. We're an even smaller, within the military services. Let me not forget everybody else. Army first and then everybody else.
Okay, easy there, selfish.
But we just really wanted to outreach to the females. But we kept running into the PTSD issue. Mike being a very big, like I said, a supporter of mental health issues here in the area. We wanted to do something in his honor. Also, this month is Fallen Officer Memorial or Awareness Month. It's also Mental Health Month. And then May the 20th is the Armed Forces Day. So there's a lot of things going on in the community already, and this is just kind of bringing them all together.
It's awesome.
At one. Now, that being said, Friday night, May the 19th, we're having a military ball, and that's going to benefit, that's kind of pay for all the expenses. And yes, it will be mostly Army protocol because Amari, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I kind of laughed when she said that because there's a joke. It's actually a police
The
officer
state
joke.
trooper.
Yeah. Lady gets pulled over, and officer's like, well, do you know why I pulled you over? And she's like, well, probably to give me a ticket to the state trooper ball. He's like, ma'am, state troopers don't have balls.
But the Army does.
Marines have
But
bigger.
in November, you talk about the Marine Corps ball. I think of that stupid
yeah.
joke. So
We're not selling tickets. It's open to the public. Anybody who wants to come to the ball, see what a military ball looks like, and join us and have fun, they're welcome to come. We ask for a $25 donation just to cover your barbecue plate and drinks for the night. That being said, we're having a grog.
There you go.
We're having a grog. And your drinks for the night, you can drink from the grog just as much as you want to.
oh, that's awesome.
No.
Wait, where is this?
This is going to be at the VFW in Odessa, right off Andrews Highway.
Okay, and what day is this?
It's May the 19th
Oh,
at
so
6 p.m.
the heroes and heels are going to be stumbling a little bit when they come in the
you
next
know-
day.
Go ahead and explain it because everybody else would love to hear that.
Oh my gosh, the grog essentially, what the grog bowl is it's just a mix of the absolute nastiest stuff you can think of that's edible.
Oh, yeah.
And if you mess
it's like
up,
trash can punch, but worse.
like Tabasco sauce, Worcestershire sauce, tomato,
Well, it's-
water, milk.
A little bit more traditional in the sense that we do it. What it is since I was in the 101st, I'm going to be representing the 101st at this ball. So I'm going to bring a bottle of liquor that represents the 101st. Since the 101st was jumped into Normandy on D-Day, I'm going to bring a bottle of wine from Normandy and add it to this grog representing the 101st.
Nice.
Okay, so that's kind of what you're going with is representing what part, what branch, what division you were in.
Exactly.
And trying to make it personal. I get it.
So if, let's say Midland County Sheriff's Office decided to come and they had, Midland County Sheriff's Office 2013 or 14 was a bad year. So they'll bring in, that was the year that Mike was killed. They'll bring in a bottle of liquor that was minted in 2013 or 14
Nice.
to represent Mike and the grog, and then they would add it so that everybody can drink from the grog.
Okay, so we're thinking of
my
two
next
different
question
grogs.
to you, David, is what would you bring to such a grog?
Drunk me or sober me?
Let's go with drunk you. He
Ooh. I would bring what's called the Harley Davidson.
And why?
Because that was the nastiest shot I ever had to take, and I just make a bigger bottle of it. It's Bacardi 151, Jack, Jim, Jose, Johnny, and Tabasco.
And that's what you would bring to represent your experience in the Marine Corps.
Oh yeah. No, to represent you want my representation of the Marine Corps would have to be Jack Daniels and Four Loko.
Oh yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, see, and everybody gets to bring their own individual stuff. So sometimes you'll get soldiers that will bring in a bottle of Tabasco sauce. This is a bottle of Tabasco sauce that represents the blood spilt on the battlefields and the salt of the tears of the women that we left behind. And they dump it into the grog.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, dude, it's
It can be very emotional and very just emotional.
And if you mess up the protocol, you have to take a drink from the grog bowl.
Throughout the whole ball, we're going to establish rules at the beginning that say you can't use your left hand to eat the salad.
Oh, dude, we used to do that at Dan's house.
So if you violate, somebody keeps a tab of all those violations, and you will drink from the grog as a punishment for your
Oh
violations
dear
to
Lord!
the mess.
You remember that game we used to play where if you committed a party foul, you knock over a drink, you have to throw a dart at the board. Every number represented a different punishment.
I never participated in that.
Oh come on, that was awesome. Dan had to go dressed as a woman to order, to buy some things, or.
Dude, Dan would go anywhere dressed as a woman if you dared him to.
Or we had to do a public exorcism one time. You remember that?
No, dude, y'all did that after I got sober.
Oh, that's right.
I remember because y'all put the video on Facebook of Justin looking like he was having a seizure when he
in 7-Eleven.
Our buddy Justin, I guess, was supposed to act like he was possessed, so he grabs onto the door of the cooler at 7-Eleven and just starts going back, and it looked like he was having a seizure.
We had to exercise him publicly, and that was his punishment for. Oh yes, no, I can totally relate with this. This is my kind of thing.
And then you should totally go.
After we start the grog, we're going to start the silent auction for all the items that have been donated. We kind of did that a little bit intentionally.
Nice.
But we do have some really good stuff.
I
Really
see
good
what you
stuff.
did there, Gypsy, trying to trick me. No, that sounds great. That's awesome. Now, were you one of the founders or co-founders of Heroes in Heels, or are you just kind of carrying on the legacy?
This is the first year we've ever done it.
Really?
So me and a group of ladies were, like I said, trying to figure out how to reach out to these women that are in the community. And we just came up with this idea and decided to run with it.
That's an amazing idea. It's so amazing, in fact, the name of it's great, too. I did not figure that this was the first year that this had been going on. So
Yes, sir.
that's a good thing if you really think about it. It's an ingenious idea.
And I hope in next year we will learn some lessons and be much better.
Oh, trust. I've worked in radio for a few years now, and with that comes events, and oh yes, you learn slowly but surely. You learn. There's always just going to be train wrecks, no matter what event you throw. But your 1st one is always the hardest. So if after you're done with this year, you feel a little discouraged, please know that you will go in next year twice as wise as you were with this one. And I hope it continues. This is an amazing idea. We're very honored to have you on the show, by the way. Anybody else who has something veteran related going on, please feel free to hit us up on Facebook. That's actually what Callie did here. And we will have you on the show. We want to support veterans any way that we can. We want to make sure that they know that they have a place here at, of course, all the VFWs. And David is actually post commander of the VFW right down the road from here.
Oh, no.
And
I'm also
yes.
the district senior vice.
Oh, no.
We just want everybody to know that this is the place for our veterans, especially here in this area. This is where you can come, talk out your feelings, tell us about what's going on in your life. We don't want to ask you a whole lot about, what you did in the service, as much as we want to learn about what you're going through now after the service. It's the whole focus of this show.
Or what you've learned, what you've grown with.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something else too. It's not just.
With that said, Callie, what did you do in the military?
92 Yankee, which is unit supply. I was with a unit out of Fort. Sorry, you got me with the comment about stuff that you did here or did there. 'Cause I was kind of nervous coming in here because I'm like, what are they going to ask me?
Really?
There's some things that, like you just said, we just don't want to revisit.
Really, in this show, we don't want to dig too deep into some of the bad memories. As a matter of fact, the whole point of this show, me and David basically decided that it's to help people who are coming out not really knowing what to do with their lives. That's really the main focus of this show, is life after the military. And speaking of which, I got our 2 World War II veterans coming in next week.
Sweet.
And they're both, I call them the Bills. They're at my grandfather's retirement home. They're both named Bill. They're both World War II vets. And there's actually a third Bill, but he's also a World War II vet.
Good Lord.
He's had some of the concerns that you did. He's still apprehensive about coming in because he doesn't really want to visit that. Back on track, you said that you were an officer.
No. I was 92 Yankee, which is unit supply.
No, I mean after the military.
Oh, after
Yes.
the military.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yes. Yes, sir, I was.
And how long were you on the force?
About 4 years.
What are you doing now?
What am I doing right now? Right now, I'm just running this event with the DAV, working with veterans, kind of resourcing stuff that they need. Just working.
How long have you been out of the military?
I got out in 2005.
With your experience, everything that you've seen, everything that you've been through, when you first got out, did you have a really hard time readjusting? Was it an easy transition for you, or was it kind of difficult?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question on my circumstance, because when I got out, I went straight to being a military spouse.
Okay.
And I supported that career up until 2012. So quite some years as a military spouse on top of military myself. So it's almost like I had to do 2 transitions. I had to transition from active duty to military spouse, then military spouse to complete civilian.
Military spouse is almost like being in reserves anyways.
It really was, because there was 5 deployments,
Yeah.
And when a spouse is deployed, and that's another reason why females specifically have my attention, because I've been there as an active duty soldier myself. I've been there as a spouse myself. I've been there raising kids by myself. I've been there through the PTSD with my spouse.
While going through your own.
While going through my own. But, I never really got to realize my own until some of those other things resolved.
Right.
So it's like you always put stuff on the back burner until you can have time to focus on this. And then by the time you do focus on this, you're like, wow,
So basically,
what
you
happened.
you were taking care of him, and didn't really even have time to focus on you, and didn't even realize it at the time. Now, what was the catalyst that made you realize that maybe you have some issues that you also need to deal with?
Oh. So, 2009, my best friend died in a Black Hawk crash. It crashed into the U.S. Antarctic off the coast of Virginia Beach. They were doing seal extractions, and the Black Hawk got too close to the ship, crash landed onto the deck. Yes. And so his funeral, went to his funeral. The day that we got back from his funeral, I had been out of college for so long, I was like, oh, I got to go to school, blah, blah, blah. So I go to school, and that was the day of the Fort Hood shooting. So, needless to say, it was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of stuff. And at the end of the day, when I finally, it was probably past midnight, 1 o'clock by the time that I actually got released and debriefed and everything. And when I got home, it was kind of like, wow, 13 people died today. But it wasn't till a year later, when the second shooter came on post, they stopped him at the gun store. The gun store owner had reported him, and they were able to stop him before he got on post. But we were on post. My husband had just come back from Iraq that day. We're at the hotel. We're getting ready to go back home from his arrival back in town. And again, the sirens going off. Remain where you're at. Don't move. We're locked down again. And I think it was at that moment that it finally, just everything, the accumulation of years of stress and trauma and crap just came like flooding down. And it was like, oh my God, they really did die that day.
Yeah.
I could no longer at that point put it aside and say, oh, I'll deal with it later. It came crashing in like a ton of bricks. And I know he's looking at me like, oh my God.
No, it's hard to find something to say to that.
No.
Because there's really no right way to approach that situation. When it comes to, people and their emotions, you never know when it's all going to come to a head. And David, I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, that happened with me. My biggest thing was after I got blown up, I spent my last year and a half in the Marine Corps in a Wounded Warrior detachment, and our whole job was get well and go to events. Yes. So I stayed drunk for a year and a half, and then got out and stayed drunk for about another, what was that?
Yeah, over the years.
About 4 years after that, just stayed drunk. And then, I got to the point where I realized that I had a drinking problem. Yeah. So I went to the vet center and spoke with Alicia at the vet center here in Midland. And
I love Alicia.
Oh yeah. And that's when she's wonderful. And that's when I found out, because when I got medically separated, the VA wouldn't rate PTSD. They said I had adjustment disorders. And so I went through my whole time thinking,
that's a nice little label to put on it. Yeah. Adjustment disorders.
Yeah. And so I thought, I went through my life, my life after the Marine Corps, dealing with these issues that I thought they're just adjustment disorders. I'll readjust, they'll go away, and they never went away. And so when I went to start seeing Alicia, that's when she's like, yeah, you have PTSD. And 6 months after that, I'm in a rehab facility for my drinking, and and now being over a year sober, I'm now in a healthy state of mind to deal with those issues. But yeah, I know where you're coming from when a lot of people think guys and girls get out and it's instantaneous. Your PTSD is right there, and what a lot of people don't seem to understand.
And it's identifiable.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't understand is that stuff can lay dormant for years. A lot of Vietnam vets, it took them 40 years after Vietnam before they started even reaching out for help. You just thought that was just the way it was now.
Yeah.
That you were going to deal with this and there was absolutely no helping you, or you dealt with it long enough that it just kind of became normal. Like with my foot. I have a fused joint. I've had it now for 6 years now. And I don't remember what it's like to have the full range of motion in my foot. It's just a normal thing to me now. And it's kind of the same thing with PTSD and symptoms of PTSD, is a lot of people just go with it.
I think that's a very good way you put that, because a lot of people, you related that to a physical injury. And a lot of people don't make that connection that PTSD is the same as a physical injury. It's something that you learn to live with, but it's something that never goes away.
But I think that's the hard part, is the learning to live with it type aspect. I found that it took me away from my kids 90% of the time. Because even if I would take my children to the park, I'm not watching them play and having fun with them. I'm looking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for threats. I'm
Yep.
looking for
Oh, yeah.
dangers. I'm looking for stuff. I'm not paying attention to my kids, and I have missed so many years.
Hell, when I was in Dallas yesterday, we were driving around and there was a box in the middle of the road, and I had a kind of locked up quick little like reflex of holy crap, what is in that box?
I never thought about that. You doing what you did, I could see how anything in the highway will instantly
and
trigger
the thing
you.
is, sometimes, and she can vouch for, sometimes you don't have those moments. That's what makes PTSD so weird, and it makes it so scary to deal with, because you could be driving down the road and see a bag of trash in the road and not think twice. You just cruise by it, not thinking twice. But then one day, you'll just be driving down the road and you'll see it and you'll just, oh my God, just have a quick, instantaneous,
almost want to jerk the wheel.
Yeah, or it could be 2:00 in the afternoon and you pull into a place that's usually crowded and it's practically dead, like in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And you automatically think something suspicious.
Something's about to go down
Exactly.
because the locals have cleared out. But again, it doesn't happen all the time.
See, this is right here is why this show exists. You two talking back and forth. It just it brings things out in a public way that a lot of people who've been there might think is abnormal to feel. And you guys just organically talking back and forth have brought out a lot right there that I don't think a lot of people are really aware of. It's perfectly normal for something that simple to trigger your PTSD. It's perfectly normal for somebody to not realize they have it because they're too busy once they get home taking care of the needs of others, and then bam, one day it hits them. These are things that I think need to be out in the open. That's the entire point of this show, helping people recognize that they might have PTSD and not even realize it, and realizing also that they can't deal with it on their own. They need to seek out help. It doesn't mean they're weak. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. It just means that that's how it is. You have to you have to seek out help to help you deal with it if you want to live a more normal life. And I really appreciate you guys talking about that. I know
I have to bring in the funny part of that, because it's by no means funny. But
right, but you have to look at everything with a sense of humor.
Yeah, everything has a sense of humor to me. Even this terrible incident that happened. At the time I was pregnant, I was probably about 6.5 months pregnant with my daughter. And of course, they've changed it now from a workplace violence to a combat incident. That way everybody could get Purple Hearts and they could get service connection to their disabilities that resulted from that day and everything.
Right.
So I always make a joke. I said, does that make my 7-year-old now a combat veteran?
That's pretty awesome.
She was there. She survived it just as much as I did.
So you were still you were pregnant. Did you realize you were pregnant when you were in a combat zone?
No. This was Fort Hood.
Oh, Fort Hood.
Yeah,
okay.
the Fort Hood shooting, they just classified it as workplace violence.
Oh,
and then the
okay.
Army came back and said, no, this is going to be... They came back, right?
Just basically a way to justify it.
Yeah,
Right?
essentially, they'd been boots on ground in the States like not even 2 days.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, they weren't...
Yeah, so they went ahead and classified it
That's
as...
really funny. Now I get it. I'm sorry, I'm running a little bit slow today, guys.
It's early. We get it.
Yeah.
It is way too early.
But no, I really appreciate having you guys on the show. Callie, thank you very much for being here. Heroes in Heels, May 20th. You guys make sure you're there. Like she said, it's focused on the women of the military, but it is available to everybody, male or female, and to our men and women in the police force. Thank you, David, for being here. See you guys next time on GI Know.
This program was a production of the Recording Library of West Texas and is also available at recordinglibrary.org.